On the night he toppled Pink Floyd for Album of the Year, Christopher Cross became a legend overnight, outshining the biggest acts and even landing an Oscar for his next hit. But within 4 years, the same industry that crowned him king turned him into an outcast. He was left to play state fairs, while executives whispered that he simply did not look right for MTV. How did the most celebrated new artist in Grammy history lose everything before he could even escape the shadow of his own debut? The answer starts far from the spotlight in the smoky clubs of San Antonio, where an unlikely musical journey first began. Long before Christopher Cross became a soft rock sensation, he was just another kid in San Antonio, Texas, hauling a battered Flying V guitar onto dimly lit stages. At 17, Cross was fronting Flash, a local band that did not just dabble in rock, they lived for it. The group tore through covers of Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, their amps stacked high and set to 10, filling neighborhood clubs with a wall of sound. Cross, known to friends as Chris Geppert, did not look like a future balladeer. He was all long hair and denim, wrestling with guitar riffs that demanded blistering speed and raw power. The band's setup was pure ambition, Marshall stacks, battered drum kits, and a set list that left little doubt about their musical heroes. One night in 1970, opportunity crashed through the door. Deep Purple's Ritchie Blackmore fell ill before a San Antonio show, and Cross, barely out of high school, was called up to fill in. For a single night, he stood in Blackmore's shoes, hammering out solos for a crowd that came for legends. It was not a fluke. Cross could really play. His bandmates, Andy Salmon and Rob Muir, remember those nights as a blur of sweat and adrenaline, with Cross leading the charge. The irony is hard to miss. The same young man who would later be dismissed as too mild for TV once earned his stripes in the loudest rooms in Texas. In those years, image meant nothing. All that mattered was whether you could make the walls shake. Christopher Cross's debut album landed in record stores on December 27, 1979. The cover, with its flamingo and pastel palette, gave little hint of the storm it was about to unleash on the charts. Ride Like the Wind, featuring Michael McDonald's unmistakable harmonies, shot up to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. Sailing followed, gliding all the way to number 1, and staying there for 1 week, while Never Be the Same claimed the top spot on the adult contemporary chart. Even Say You'll Be Mine, with Nicolette Larson's backing vocals, broke into the top 20. 4 chart hits from a debut album was a rare feat, but Cross was not finished. By the time the 23rd Annual Grammy Awards rolled around in February 1981, the numbers were staggering. The album had sold over 5 million copies in the United States alone, earning a 5x platinum certification. That night at Radio City Music Hall, Cross swept the 4 biggest Grammy categories. He won Record of the Year and Song of the Year for Sailing, Album of the Year for his self-titled debut, and Best New Artist. No one had ever done it before. He even beat out Pink Floyd's The Wall for Album of the Year, stunning industry insiders and veterans alike. This was a historic sweep. Later that same year, Cross delivered Arthur's Theme, Best That You Can Do, co-written with Burt Bacharach, Carol Bayer Sager, and Peter Allen for the film Arthur. The song soared to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, held the top spot for 3 weeks, and brought home the Academy Award for Best Original Song. At just 30, Christopher Cross had 5 Grammys, an Oscar, and 2 #1 singles, all before MTV aired its first video. MTV flipped the switch in August 1981, broadcasting a new kind of music experience around the clock. The channel's early programmers were blunt about their criteria. They wanted youth, energy, and a look that would leap off the television screen. Christopher Cross, whose voice had just conquered radio and the Grammys, found himself on the outside. His videos rarely made the playlist, and when they did, they were buried in late-night slots. An MTV executive said Cross simply did not fit their demographic. The new gatekeepers were not swayed by platinum records or songwriting awards. Their decisions were driven by visuals, haircuts, wardrobes, and attitude. mattered as much as melody. Cross's soft rock sound and understated presence clashed with the channel's appetite for spectacle, while emerging acts like Duran Duran and Madonna tailored their music to the camera. Cross's style was built for radio, not for video. The mechanics of exposure shifted almost overnight. Artists who fit the MTV mold saw their videos played in heavy rotation, fueling sales and radio airplay. For those who did not, the promotional ladder was suddenly missing rungs. Cross's label could push his singles to radio, but without MTV's blessing, the reach was limited. The old rules, where a great song and a strong voice could carry an artist, no longer applied. For Christopher Cross, the door that had just opened to the world was already swinging shut. Sales numbers told the story with brutal clarity. Christopher Cross's second album, Another Page, arrived in 1983 with the full weight of Warner Brothers behind it. Despite radio support and a gold certification, the record moved only around 800,000 copies in the United States, a steep drop from the 5 million copies his debut had shipped. The album's singles, including All Right and Think of Laura, found modest success, but none matched the impact of his earlier hits. Chart positions reflected the shift. Another Page peaked at number 11 on the Billboard 200, respectable for most, but a warning sign for an artist who had just swept the Grammy Awards. By the time Every Turn of the World was released in 1985, the numbers had collapsed. The album barely registered, stalling at number 127 on the Billboard chart. Singles failed to crack the top 40. Warner Brothers, facing disappointing returns, poured money into marketing and promotion, but nothing reversed the slide. Internal reports estimated the label lost nearly $2 million on the project, a staggering figure for an artist who, just 4 years earlier, had been their brightest hope. In 1986, Warner quietly severed ties, ending a partnership that had once seemed unstoppable. The industry that had crowned Christopher Cross now left him behind, his commercial value reduced to a line item in a quarterly loss statement. For Cross, the era of platinum records and sold-out tours was over, replaced by shrinking budgets and a vanishing spotlight. Behind the numbers, the fallout hit much closer to home. The stress of fading from the spotlight weighed heavily on Christopher Cross. He began to gain weight, a physical sign of the pressure he carried after years of constant scrutiny. Awards shows, once a place of triumph, became a source of dread. He described anxiety attacks that left him breathless backstage, unable to shake the fear that everyone was watching him slip. Nights often ended with a drink in hand as he tried to quiet the noise of disappointment and self-doubt. The strain seeped into his marriage to his high school sweetheart. Arguments grew more frequent, and the distance between them widened until the bond finally broke. The applause had faded, but the ache of loss lingered long after the last encore. Christopher Cross refused to let shrinking budgets or industry indifference stop him from making new music. He made a clear decision. I am not going to make any more Christopher Cross records. They are too expensive to make, and given the numbers I'm going to sell, it is not financially practical, but I still have music to offer. Instead of booking costly studios, Cross started bringing new songs to soundcheck on tour. His band worked up the arrangements on the fly, recording straight from the stage before audiences arrived. One trusted musician mixed the tracks, and Cross paid out of pocket to have them mastered. This stripped-down process meant no label advances, no marketing campaigns, just songs captured in the moment and released on his own terms. The old system had shut him out, but Cross found a way to keep creating, no matter who was listening. In an era where image can erase achievement overnight, Christopher Cross's story is a warning. Talent alone is never enough. As social media shapes who rises and who fades, his legacy reminds us that greatness is not always visible, and what endures cannot always be measured by trends. Share your thoughts below.